Well, right now, President Trump is preparing to attend the swearing-in of his new Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo. This will be the president's first visit to the State Department since taking office. Pompeo takes on the new role at a critical time as the White House weighs its options over North Korea and how to handle the Iran nuclear deal. Well, there's speculation over the role Israel's Prime Minister will play in President Trump's Iran decision. On Monday, Benjamin Netanyahu revealed documents that he claims proves Iran has been lying about its nuclear ambitions. But the United Nations nuclear watchdog says there's no new information and nothing to indicate that Iran has been breaking the nuclear deal. Well, France's president, who just met with President Trump recently, appears to be adjusting his stance on this very deal. Melissa Bell is at the live wall, joining me now from Paris. Melissa, it sounds like Mr. Macron feels he couldn't change President Trump's mind, so he's changing his own, preparing to compromise.
Certainly there was some surprise, Lynda, when he started talking last week in Washington about this new deal. But we do have a lot more clarity now than we did. Essentially, his position since he left Washington has been to reach out to European allies, to reach out also to the Russian president, the Israeli leadership, the Iranian as well, to try and get everyone behind this idea of keeping the nuclear deal, but building this new peace, this new treaty, this new pact, this new deal around it. He was speaking from Australia earlier today, Lynda. This is what he said.
I don't know what the US president will decide the 12th of May. I just want to say, whatever the decision will be, we will have to prepare such a broader negotiation and a broader deal. Because I think nobody wants a war in the region, and nobody wants an escalation in terms of tension in the region.
The gamble, Lynda, appears to be that this way he has some chance of convincing Donald Trump to stick with the deal, just at least until these negotiations on the broader deal, of which he would be a part, can get going. But if Donald Trump does decide to pull out, and he keeps making it clear that he simply doesn't know which way he's going to go, then it provides a sort of forum for multilateral regional talks to continue with the United States involved. And I think from Emmanuel Macron's point of view, if even that is achieved, it will have been something.
Absolutely. So just give us a sense, Melissa, of how the people there in France are reacting to all of this.
Well, keeping a close eye on this new role that Emmanuel Macron has very much given himself as sort of spokesman for Europe. This is the front page of Le Monde newspaper for tomorrow morning, Thursday's edition, Lynda. All about the nuclear deal. It says, in great peril. The newspaper points out that Emmanuel Macron's biggest challenge now, as we await the American decision, is really to try and convince both the Russian and the Iranian leadership of the necessity to look beyond the current deal and towards a greater negotiation. That's almost as unlikely sitting here as it is that Donald Trump will continue to back the deal, Lynda.
Yes, certainly difficult negotiations ahead if that is what take place. Melissa Balfour in Paris, good to have you with us. Thanks so much. Well, Emmanuel Macron did have an awkward moment on his visit to Australia. In a news conference with Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull, he referred to Mr. Turnbull's wife as, quote, delicious. Take a listen.
I wanted to thank you for your welcome. Thank you and your delicious wife for your warm welcome.
Well, certainly there was a lot of response on that, especially on Twitter, as you'd imagine. An Australian reporter tried to explain the reference by tweeting that the French word for delicious also translates as delightful or lovely. Well, speaking of eye-raising comments, American rapper Kanye West is taking some heat for his remarks about slavery during a visit to the TMZ newsroom.
You hear about slavery for 400 years. For 400 years, that sounds like a choice. Like, you was there for 400 years and it's all of y'all? You know, like, it's like we're mentally in prison.
Well, West later took to Twitter saying, of course, I know that slaves did not get shackled and put on a boat by free will. My point, he adds, is for us to have stayed in that position, even though the numbers were on our side, means that we were mentally enslaved. Well, now to a developing story in Libya, where a suicide attack on a government office has killed at least 14 people. Officials say 4 gunmen opened fire at the election commission in Tripoli and then detonated their explosives. Most of the victims were said to be commission employees and security guards. The government blames ISIS. Well, still ahead, it's used to power electric cars and smartphones, but a CNN investigation reveals the mineral needed to make the batteries for those products is being mined using children. Plus, the opposition hits a political roadblock in Armenia. The response, more protests. We'll explain. Stay with us.